Morning campers, and welcome to my monthly roundup of news, scandal, gossip and anything else Microlight related here in the UK and beyond. So welcome to Microlight News. Right, so first, just a couple of admin points. Firstly, I've figured out how to work chapters in YouTube. So if you look at this video, if you scroll along the bottom, the play line, you'll see that I've split this video up into chapters. So if there's something in particular you want to see or something you want to skip, then just scroll through the chapters and you'll see the different parts of the video. Second thing is, at the end of this video, I'm going to show you something new, something that I've been working on and something that I hope you'll find very useful. So stick around till the end. Okay, so there are lots of interesting articles in this month's Microlight Flying magazine. Articles that talk about how and where we're going to be able to fly in the future. And also one particular article that could quite literally save your life. So anyway, let's crack on. The first story that's... now that little noise there is quite interesting. I've got a subscriber counter, and every time I get another subscriber it gives a little beep, which is what it's just done. So whoever that is that's just subscribed, I'll try and find out, and I'll stick your name up on the screen. So anyway, whoever it was, thanks for subscribing. So the first article in this month's Microlight Flying magazine that really grabbed my attention is all about drones, which, as we know, are becoming more and more popular. And when I'm talking about drones, or this article is talking about drones, we're not talking about the small 249 gram drones that people fly for a bit of fun and for a hobby. We're talking about the commercial operators, the likes of Amazon and the medical profession, that want to start using much bigger drones to actually deliver stuff to us. And in particular, what this article is saying is that the commercial operators are not currently happy with the way that they have to operate at the moment, which is, as we know, to set up temporary danger areas so that they can use a particular bit of airspace, and at that time when they're using that airspace, the likes of us, we can't use that airspace, so we are kept separate. And in response to that, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, that rolls off the tongue, doesn't it, EASA, they're looking at ways of potentially arranging some airspace that can be shared by both definitely unarmed, I hope they're unarmed, unmanned aerial vehicles and manned aircraft. We can actually share the same airspace, and they are considering implementing something called Airspace, which is going to be a chunk of air predominantly below 500 feet where drones and manned aircraft such as Microlights can share the same sort of airspace. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, I'm not sure. Clearly what is going to be key is electronic conspicuity. We're going to be able to need to see where the drones are. Similarly, drones are going to need to know where we are, so that we can keep out of each other's way. So if that does become a reality, clearly EC is going to have to play a big part. So what are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about flying in the same bit of airspace as a drone? Stick me a comment down below, let me know what you think. The next article that I want to talk about, and again is something that will really affect how we fly in the future, and this is an article from Rob Hughes where he's talking about the state of UK airspace, and Rob tells us that one thing is clear, that airspace is changing. The UK airspace system that we currently have was designed in the 1950s, and it is no longer fit for purpose. And Rob tells us about the CAA's airspace modernisation strategy, which is available online. You can actually go and read it. If you Google CAP 2547, you can go online, you can print it off for yourself and you can have a read. It does make a fascinating read. It's not particularly long, it's only about 5 or 6 pages long, and I have printed it off and I've had a look, so I'll praise it for you, save you the bother. So the document starts off with giving us a bit of a history lesson, and as I've said, it says that the current UK airspace system has not changed since 1950. Since 1950, a lot of things have happened to airspace. The demand for airspace has increased massively. We've got something like 95% more air traffic than we had back in 1950. So how we manage that needs to be looked at. Also, the demand for airspace from different types of things. For example, drones that we just talked about, they weren't a thing back in 1950. So in 2017, the Secretary of State tasked the CAA with looking at this and basically saying sort it out. And in response to that, the CAA developed the Airspace Modernisation Strategy, or AMS. And that's what this document's all about. So there are 4 aims to the strategy, and they are basically to overhaul the airspace system as we know it, looking at 4 things in particular. 1, safety. It needs to be safe, obviously. 2, simplifying it. I'll go with simplification. Anybody at the moment that's studying air law will know that it's complicated. So if it can be simplified, then that has got to be a winner. Integration, again, we've just been talking about drones, how drones and microlights and all the other different types of aircraft can all use the same airspace together rather than keeping us all segregated, and also sustainability. Obviously, there's got to be a green element to it, and looking after the environment. Again, as I said in the previous article, the CAA are saying that EC is going to be a huge factor in airspace in the future. Talking of EC, electronic conspicuity, in the last edition of Microlight News, I told you about the EC rebate scheme. I'm not going to go into detail about that. Go and look at the last Microlight News. But just as a bit of a warning, that EC rebate scheme, where basically you can get a bit of money off an EC device, you've got about 2 weeks left. So if you want to take advantage of that, I'll put a link on the screen. If you want to get an EC device, and I think the way we're going is it's going to become mandatory. So if you can get a few quid off, then go and look at, I'll put the link on there, go and have a look at that before it's too late. What is clear is whatever happens to the airspace system in the future, electronic conspicuity is going to be absolutely crucial and vital. And I think we are definitely going down the route of EC becoming mandatory for anything that wants to fly in the sky. How that EC device is, or what that EC device is going to be, is up for debate. At the moment, there are standalone units that we all know about, things like, for example, the Sky Echo 2 that I use. There are others available. Europe, however, are looking at the possibility of having a mobile phone solution to the EC issue. So whether or not we're going to have an app on our phone, or maybe a combination of the two, I don't know. But whatever happens, EC is going to be a big thing, and airspace is definitely changing. So I will keep you informed. Watch this space. The final article that I want to talk about from this month's Microlight Flying magazine is an article relating to safety, and this is vitally, crucially important because this could save somebody's life. And this article relates to the BMAA's Belt Up campaign, which is a campaign which is designed to promote the use of the full harness when flying microlights. And this campaign resulted from 2 accidents involving Pegasus Quick Flexwing microlights, where on one occasion a pilot received some quite nasty facial injuries, and on the second accident, unfortunately, the pilot lost his life. And in both accidents, it was determined that the pilot could have fared a lot better had they have been wearing their shoulder harness, which they weren't, rather than just the single lap belt that they were wearing. So, having read this article, I went onto the AAIB website and had a look at these 2 accident reports. And anybody can do this. You can log onto the AAIB website and have a look at the accident reports in detail. And if you've got half an hour, I'd urge you to go and do that for 2 reasons. Firstly, it highlights what a fantastic job the AAIB do. And secondly, if ever there's an accident, there's generally learning points that we can draw from it. And you can always learn from other people's mistakes. So go and have a look. So the first accident happened this was in August 2022, and it involved a Pegasus Quick. The registration was Charlie Golf Romeo Romeo. If you do a search, AAIB, put that registration in, you can have a look at this for yourself. I won't go into great detail, but the synopsis of this accident was basically that during landing, the aircraft veered to the right and bounced before tipping over onto its right side. The actual cause of the accident itself couldn't be determined. However, although the pilot was wearing his lap strap, he was not wearing the shoulder strap provided. Consequently, he sustained some serious facial injuries when his head made contact with the front strut. In fact, the accident report booklet shows a picture of the pilot's visor, and quite clearly you can see that visor has taken quite a large frontal impact, and it's saying that wouldn't have happened if he'd have been wearing his shoulder restraint. The second accident referred to in this article again relates to a Pegasus Quick Microlight, and this is an accident which happened in June 2022 and, as I've said, sadly resulted in the pilot losing their life. The synopsis of this accident is that during startup the engine suddenly went to high RPM, the aircraft accelerated over the ground and became airborne with the base bar attached to the front strut. Clearly that in itself is an issue which I'm not going to go into detail about. The aircraft struck the ground in a field adjacent to the airfield, and the pilot died from his head injuries 8 days later. And the report goes on to identify that the pilot might have survived if he had been wearing his shoulder stroke diagonal harness, and his helmet had been designed to protect him from rotational head injuries. So again, failure to wear a shoulder harness is a reason why the pilot's injuries were as they were in this occasion. This report goes on to show a picture of the pilot's seat from this particular aircraft, which I'll put on the screen. And the report noted that the front seat diagonal shoulder strap had been tightened between the pylon and the base tube and routed under the seat cushion to prevent it from fouling the propeller during flight. In this configuration, the shoulder strap could not have been worn by the pilot during this flight. And this is a regular feature. I have quite often seen Flexwing Microlights where the shoulder harnesses have been tied up out of the way and they are clearly not in use. So following this accident, the AAIB did a little bit more digging and a little bit more research to try and find out why pilots were routinely not wearing the shoulder straps, even though the pilot operator handbook quite clearly says that the shoulder harnesses must be worn at all times. And they even went further and asked some of the instructors, and they found that instructors were not actively encouraging pilots to wear shoulder straps or safety harnesses during their training for two reasons. Firstly, it restricts movement, and secondly, if it was worn loosely to prevent that movement from being restricted, then the shoulder straps could slip off onto your arms and then prevent you from being able to use your arms properly. So as a result of that, and having conducted interviews with Flexwing pilots, the BMEA identified that it was a common operating culture in the Flexwing community not to wear the shoulder strap. And when the BMEA did a bit more digging, they found a section in Section S of the British Civil Airworthiness Requirements, so the rules and regulations about how we fly, what we fly and how they should be made. There is a specific line in Section S which talks about harnesses, which basically says that all aircraft should have harnesses fitted, except that only a lap strap needed to be provided for the front seat occupant of a weight shift controlled aircraft. So with that line in there and the instructors not telling us that we should be wearing shoulder harnesses, it's perhaps not surprising that they are routinely not being worn. However, as a result of these accidents, quite clearly that culture has got to stop. So as a result of the AAIB's investigation into this last accident, a number of things have happened. Firstly, the CAA have been asked to review Section S, in particular that part relating to lap belts for the front seat pilots of Flexwing aircraft, and I think that exemption is going to be taken out. The next thing that's happened is that instructors have been told that they will make sure that students are wearing their harnesses. In fact, it's actually going to become part of the GST, and during the GST a student pilot is going to have to demonstrate that they know how to adjust and wear the harness, and if they don't, then they're not going to be passing the GST. So there you go, that's my last article. Just in summary, and just to echo what the BMAA are trying to get us to do, if you've got a shoulder strap, please, please, please make sure you wear it. It's there for a reason. It could save your life. Right, from the forums, a couple of weeks ago the weather showed signs of improving and it looked like spring was just around the corner. The weather's since changed its mind. However, that glimpse of good weather was enough to make the forums become alive with people getting all excited about flying. So anyway, lots to talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about is a post from Brian Knox, who quite simply posted in the SSDR Microlight Owners Facebook forum that he was looking for a reserve chute for his sub-70 aircraft. That post got hijacked and quickly became a hot topic of conversation as to whether or not you need a reserve chute on a sub-70 aircraft. So just to give you some flavour of what the people's opinions were, Pete Montgomery started things off by saying, has there ever been a life saved by a sub-70 chute being thrown? And he doesn't know the answer to that question, but what he is saying is that if you are flying an aircraft and you are worried that your wing might fold up to a point where you need a reserve chute, then perhaps that wing hasn't been built properly and you shouldn't be flying it in the first place, and he wouldn't be relying on a chute for a sub-70 aircraft. He says a lot can go wrong with a chute, and there are scenarios, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, where they just simply won't work to save you. So there you go. Tony Prentice has responded to that by basically saying very shortly and sweetly, yes, but if you haven't got a chute, you've got absolutely no chance whatsoever, which is a fair point, I guess. Rob Zametti has come back with that, saying he thinks it depends. By it he means your wing. So if your wing has disintegrated to the point where you have nothing to lose, then sure. But equally, a potentially flyable platform with a chute tangled around the tail may not improve your odds either. I think that if you're going to fit one, it would need to be good enough and probably explosively launched to give you a sporting chance of a save. So this is a really interesting point. Basically what he's saying is you could have a point where your aircraft, there's something wrong with it, but it is still possibly flyable, potentially landable. But if you decide to throw your reserve chute and you mess it up and your reserve chute gets tangled around something, you could then potentially turn something that is flyable into something that's unflyable, and turn a bad situation into an even worse situation. So that's a really interesting point. Tony Prentice carries on by saying, this is what risk assessment's all about. Of course it is. He's been flying a GTR 450 on a regular basis, and he has got a BRS fitted, or a ballistic reserve chute. I think that's what it stands for. He's flown powered trikes for 43 years and he's not had to deploy an emergency chute in that time. Although he does talk about a near miss with a low flying Spitfire that busted the airfield circuit. I bet that was a good story to talk about in the pub, when he nearly had to throw one, but no, he's still not thrown one in 43 years. So the chances of having to throw a reserve chute, thankfully, are very, very slim. So this conversation goes on for there's pages and pages and pages of it. Rob Zametti again comes back by saying a hand thrown would, I think, be next to useless. Getting it clear of the remains of a sub-70 would be a significant issue. So if you really need a ballistic chute, it needs to be a ballistic chute if you're going to stand any sort of chance. The issues facing paragliders and sub-70 aircraft are significantly different, as are the use cases. Wing collapses and structural failure on a sub-70 should be very rare, unlike on paragliders where collapses are part of the course. And again, it goes on and on and on. Now, Pete Montgomery has then come back with a post, a huge post. There's, I can't put it on the screen because it won't fit, but he does raise some really, really interesting points which are worth talking about. Firstly, he says that, yes, with paragliders, you'd have to be mental not to fly a paraglider with a reserve chute, and I tend to agree with that, having flown paragliders in the past. I think I'll put a picture up. I've got a picture of me somewhere ground handling a paraglider wing, so I do know a little bit about that. And yes, if you were going to fly a paraglider wing, then I would carry a reserve chute. However, hang gliders, on the other hand, which is what Pete flies, or free flies mostly these days, he's saying that this is where the issues of whether you need a reserve chute or not becomes really, really interesting. And the point that he makes here is that the number of people saved by a chute is not dissimilar to the number of people killed by a chute. When they haven't been deployed properly, or when they've been deployed when they didn't intend to. So there's another factor where reserve chutes can become more of a problem. He also raises the point that mid-air collision is the highest risk factor that faces hang glider pilots. And if you look at where hang glider pilots are, especially if they're like ridge soaring or if they're circling in a thermal, they all tend to congregate together. So the chance of a wing collapse, pretty slim, but the chance of a mid-air collision are quite high. And he also says that, particularly with ridge soaring, that takes place very, very close to the ground. So if you do deploy a reserve chute, are you going to have enough height for it to actually do any good? Another thing worth considering. He also goes on to agree with Rob's earlier point that If you really want the extra security of a chute on a trike, it would need to be ballistic. That adds to the purchase cost and the overhaul costs. And he knows of some guys who fly with ballistic chutes who are so worried about accidental deployment that they fly with the safety pin in. Wow, so there's so much to think about when you're looking at reserve chutes, and Pete summarises by saying it's not as simple an issue as saying whether having a reserve chute is right or wrong. There are too many ifs and buts involved, and quite clearly he's outlined some of them. It's a huge issue. Another point worth considering has been raised by Dave Stewart, who says that I only had one, i.e. a reserve chute, to gain more fuel on my PB. His chute weighs 2.5 kilograms, so that allows 2.5 kilograms more fuel, as sub 70 can be flown at 75 kilograms with a chute. Nothing to do with saving my life. I doubt it would work anyway, unless the whole wing had totally disappeared. So yet another factor just thrown into the mix there. It does give you a bit of a weight advantage carrying a chute as well. So what's my take on the reserve chute issue? Well, it's a personal choice. Personally, my choice is that I don't fly with a reserve chute. My main reason for that is because the wings these days are so well made, so massively over-engineered, that the chance of a structural collapse of the wing is practically nil. So I don't think there is a need. I don't think the cost is justified. I don't think there's a need for it. I accept that there's a personal risk involved, and I accept that there is a risk of things like mid-air collisions and stuff like that. However, I can mitigate against that risk by using proper threat and error management, proper airmanship, and basically using my eyeballs to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I've done the maths. A reserve chute weighs about 2.5 kilograms. So instead of carrying a reserve chute, that 2.5 kilograms equates to 5 cans of beer. So the chances of me needing a reserve chute are practically nil. The chances of me being able to make use of 5 cans of beer if I go flamping or camping is an absolute definite. So there you go. For me, hands down, I don't think I'll be carrying a reserve chute. I'll have some beer instead. Be interesting to know your thoughts though. If you've got any strong views, then stick us a comment down below and we'll have a read through it, see what you think. Right, the next one that jumped out at me, this was posted on the P&M Aviation Aircraft Owners Group, and this is of interest to anybody that flies a Quantum. And this is from Graham Slater. We are waiting for our new demo GT450 wing to get here from P&M over in India. And this will be used as a test bed for the modification of a Quantum trike with the GT450 wing. This will be an alternative option for Quantum owners to upgrade to a faster touring wing. There are a lot of Quantum Microlight pilots out there who may be interested in this. You can upgrade your old wing to a modern touring aircraft with superb capabilities and handling. The wing is both faster and at 13 square metres smaller with improved roll and speed, with an economic cruise of 75 to 80 miles an hour, which includes a handoff trim facility. Another bonus will be your maximum all-up weight will increase to 450 kilograms from 409 kilograms. So what does that mean? 2 86 kilogram people, full tanks and baggage capability. The Quantum GT will be launched soon. And further on down the comments, it does say that hopefully they are hoping to be at Popham this year. So if that's something that interests you, get yourself along to Popham so you can go and have a look. Okay, so the last post that I saw online which caught my attention was a post from Ben Ashman from FlyLight Airsports, who quite understandably was very, very excited to announce that the first FlyLight 9 machine has finally landed on American soil. And has had its first maiden flight at the hands of Tabor Coates of Blue Collar Aviation. So I've had lots of comments and questions from people over in America saying, can we get hold of FlyLight machines in mainland America? And the answer to that question is yes, you can. If you are interested, then the distributor over in America is Blue Collar Aviation. I'll put a link to their website up on the screen somewhere, and I'll put a link in the description down below as well. In fact, if you want to go and see the machines in person, up close and personal as it were, then they will be at this year's Sun and Fun in Florida from April the 9th to the 14th of April. And as an added bonus, if you go over there, I do believe you will also have a chance to meet our very own Giles Fowler. So if you're interested, go and have a look. Right, so community notices. This is the bit of the video where I give you a bit of an update about what I've been up to and what I've got planned for the future. So first thing first, bit of an update in relation to me. Those that follow the channel will probably be aware that last week I took a bit of a nosedive off a set of ladders, ended up in hospital with some broken ribs. They are healing slowly but surely, but it does mean that for the next couple of weeks at least I'm not going to be able to do any flying. As soon as I can go flying, I will, you know I will. I've still got my FlyLight 9 wing that is waiting to be test flown on my trike. As soon as I can, I will be test flying that, and I will be taking the cameras along with me and sharing that experience with you. After I've finished recording this video, I've got another one planned where I'm going to go through my audio setup. I've had a lot of comments and a lot of questions from people saying your audio is really clear when you're flying. How do you get that clarity of audio? So I'm going to show you how I do that, and that will probably be my next video that comes along. Looking a bit further afield, as I've already said, in May this year I'm flying something completely different. I've already had a few people try and have a guess. So far nobody's come anywhere close. If you want to have a guess, stick a comment down below and I'll tell you whether you're right or wrong. So I can't wait to show you that. And looking a bit further afield, this year I want to stretch my legs and fly further than I have done before. And talking of flying further, let me tell you about the Grand Tours. So what are the Grand Tours? Well, if you're a newly qualified pilot and you fancy stretching your legs and flying a little bit further than just flying around the local sites, but you're unsure or not feeling particularly confident about what's involved with touring, then the Grand Tours could be just the thing for you. Essentially, there are going to be a series of tours held throughout the year at different parts of the country. And on each tour, it was going to be a weekend event where you'll have an opportunity to be mentored by the likes of Mark Hilton, Ben Ashman and Giles Fowler into the art of touring, and they will essentially teach you everything you need to know to do it safely and confidently. Last year, Mark, Ben and Giles showed that the FlyLight range of trikes are very capable touring machines, and they flew from Darley Moor, ended up in Scotland with a number of stops along the way. So if you want to take advantage of that touring capability of your machine, but you want a little bit of guidance and a little bit of support, then give the micro maintenance team an email. I'll put an email address on the screen and also in the description down below. Essentially, as well as telling you everything that you need to know, there'll also be a cracking weekend to be had. There's going to be ground-based activities where things like engine maintenance, what camping gear you need, how best to put it all in your aircraft, and all that sort of stuff. And then there's also going to be the camping element of it as well, which is going to be a bit of a giggle, probably a few beers of a night time, bit of a barbecue, all that sort of stuff. So if that sounds like something that you would fancy having a go at, then send them an email and they'll keep you in touch with what's going on. Right, I'm almost done for this episode, but just before I go, at the start of the video, I promised you that I was going to give you something at the end of the video that I'm hoping you're going to find very useful. What I've done is I've compiled a calendar of events. So throughout the year, up and down the country, there's all sorts of flying events that go on, fly-ins and that sort of thing. And these are advertised in loads and loads of different types of places. So some of them are advertised by the BMAA, some of them are advertised on various Facebook forums. Some of them are nothing more than word of mouth. So what I've done is I've tried to collate all of these together, or as many of them as I can, and put them all in one place on a calendar. And what I will do is I will put the calendar on the screen. And as the calendar is showing, you can pause this video if you want and take screenshots, and keep this for your own personal reference so you know what is going on. And whenever I learn of any new events, then I will put them in the calendar and update it, and I will post this calendar at the end of future videos. So if you want to keep up to date, if you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon, then whenever I do post another video with an up-to-date calendar, you will be notified and you can keep yourselves up to date. If I've missed any events, or there's any events that you're aware of that aren't on the calendar, then put them in the comments down below and I will add them to the calendar. Right, that's it. I'm all done. I've waffled on way too long. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give me a thumbs up because that keeps the YouTube algorithm happy. And I will see you on the next one.